Hello and welcome to our next module. In this module, we'll be reviewing the New Jersey Plan. Now, again, just to recap where we are, the convention, we started it. The purpose was to revise the articles. Everybody kind of got a surprise with the Virginia Plan. But then when folks didn't just stomp out, uh, the Articles of Confederation, we just kind of threw dirt on it. It was done. But what you really had here now is the Virginia plan as proposed. You're really, the assumption was it favored the larger states. So the smaller states did have a rebuttal to the Virginia plan, and that's where we come up with the New Jersey plan. All right. Now to kind of get to the punchline, the New Jersey plan was really the Articles of Confederation with teeth. So when we reviewed the Articles of Confederation in a previous module, we saw a lot of cannots. In this case, you're going to see a lot of cans. Now, with the New Jersey plan, they kept the unicameral legislature, so you have a Congress with just one house, one body. Right here, I'm looking at these two bullet points here together, added an executive and added a judiciary. So what they had been fighting like crazy to avoid, at this point there is some level of concession here, but yeah, as I said in a previous module, these newer states with their newfound sovereignty, it had been viewed that a national executive and a national judiciary, could be a threat to some of their full sovereignty. All right, could regulate trade and commerce. Again, as we talked about in a previous module, you had trade wars between states, high tariffs, and one of the purposes of the states coming together was economic and military security. Or from an economic perspective, it wasn't working too well. They needed a referee. All right. Now, what you see here is that under the New Jersey plan, the national government could make requisitions based on all free citizens, both sexes, indentured servants, and 3/5 of slaves. So, where under the Articles of Confederation, the national government could only ask, pretty please. In this case, the New Jersey plan, would give the national government some mechanism to oblige the states to provide some sort of financial support. I want to get back to this point, this bullet point here in just a minute, and talk about that a little bit more in just a second. Now, at the end of all this, we have to kind of get to a couple punchlines. Well, one of them is that the small states really didn't see this proposal as flying, but what you don't always get in the textbooks, especially for this class, is really the subtle sign of the small states. Hey, sovereignty is going to be a problem. We're going to fight that one. So when the small states didn't walk out of the room, they were willing to consider the Virginia plan on some level. The New Jersey plan was still a message to the larger states that yes, they'll engage with this, but we're not going to lie down, just have their sovereignty taken away. You got to remember on the Virginia plan, the legislature really favored the larger states. If you think about sovereignty give back, the Virginia plan as proposed really wasn't as much of a give back per se to the large states as it was the small states, because at the time of the convention, each state was fully sovereign. All right. And if you talk about proportional representation in the legislative body, the larger states on the margin wouldn't give up as much. Okay. So, and really, if you get a while here and want to major in this stuff, when you really study this further, you really see where sovereignty almost torpedoed the convention really up until the end. So it really was that one sticking point all along the way. Now let me get back to bullet point 6 for a second. Could make requisitions. Now there's one thing about it, indentured servants. Hopefully you remember that from your U.S. history course. What that is. Folks who couldn't afford a boat ride from Britain, they would actually allow themselves enter into an arrangement where they were basically a slave for X number of years to pay off the fare to come over. Then once their servitude was over, they would get a small plot of land and their freedom. Now, when it comes to the convention, and you see that part 3/5 of slaves, it really is a sign of how things were really deteriorating in the general society. Slavery was a point of contention among the states even at this point. It was a moral issue and so forth, but this was a potential consideration to the southern states. And I got to tell you, when you read the convention, even the dialogue around this point, there's really a logical inconsistency to it. Because the southern states, on one hand, wanted to consider slaves property, but almost in the same breath, they wanted to consider slaves to some degree as a part of their representation in this proposed national government. So there really was a logical inconsistency in that period in the story, and we'll see that again in upcoming modules. But again, we cannot overlook the moral issue there. But what it does speak to, unfortunately, was the severity of the times and where society was really breaking down, that the non-slave states were willing to engage in this kind of dialogue. All right. So with that, that's the end of this module. And as always, you can go back, pause, restart as needed. And with that, we will catch you up in the next module.